We are back with another episode of A&J Podcast. I'm your girl A, and this is my lovely co-host
Jay.
And we have some special guests with us today. You guys, my brethren from over at PVM Podcast. Can y'all tell us what PVM stands for?
Positive vibes, maybe.
Heavy emphasis on the maybe. There we go. All right. We have Jetty and Dash joining us today, and we're having a special conversation, one that is coming from some pretty unique perspectives today. So we're just going to open this conversation up. I will drop a link below so that you guys can watch the video that we're going to reference. There is a content creator by the name of Jessica Rose, who she got famous doing the baby daddy tears, and I was all for that. Like, she branded this whole thing, writing raps about her experience as a single mom. But she recently started a podcast, and on this podcast, she discussed feeling like while she loves her child and does not regret her child, she regrets her role as a mother. And she goes on to explain why. The anxiety and the fears that come with being a parent, and the concern and the constant, you never being able to really separate yourself from that identity. And this video sparked such controversy for a lot of people. And if you are on any of the mommy boards and you're not familiar, let me put you on. We call them sanctimommies. Okay, there's a lot of sanctimommies out there who feel like, oh no, being a mother is a righteous thing. It's spiritual. You should never have negative thoughts about motherhood. But the reality is, many of us have had negative thoughts surrounding motherhood. I'm sure fathers have had similar experiences because parenthood is not this linear journey. And so this begs the question, and my good girlfriend, Lush over at Lifestyle by Lush, she had this discussion in her stories, and she pointed out that going into parenthood, we don't always necessarily have maybe all of the information, not in the true sense. There's a lot of commercialized and very packaged information. Even our mothers, sometimes, depending on their generation, are not very open about their true feelings and experiences because of how they've been taught to cope with things. So we want to open the floor to have a discussion about, do we feel as if people are honest enough about parenthood, the journey, the experience? And so we have us, the experienced parents over here. We have Jetty, who is a new dad. Congratulations. And we have Dash, who is a dad to be one day. So we actually want to open up, maybe, and maybe. We want to open up the floor to Dash first, because I think his perspective is probably going to be the most unique, coming from the space of someone who has not entered into fatherhood yet. So how do you feel about the information highway in terms of parenting?
Like the information that's like given to them, like prospective parents. All right, so I kind of feel mixed on it, you know, and it kind of really, for me, depends on your circle, your inner circle that's gonna like help you throughout that process. Like you said, I don't have any kids, but I have dated women that have had kids, and I have dated a woman that was well, during the time I was dating her, she was in the process of having a baby. So the whole introductory process of the baby arriving and everything, I kind of was hand in hand with her through that. So I was able to, like, in some part, like, play a role in her navigation of it. But I understood like how frustrated she was, like, even in the process of like not understanding, like, even how to breastfeed the baby at first. Like that was like a hard thing, you know. Then it got to the point where, well, like she was a bit of a weed smoker at the time, so like, you know, like her urges was kind of calling to want to do that, but she was fearful of the baby. But then she was also like paranoid about like the what's the medicine, the formula milk that you guys have, like. So she was paranoid about that. So like that was like a whole thing. It was kind of like her whole circle, nobody really was prepared to like kind of really share too much information at the time, except for like her grandma, and then her grandma had limited access with each other. So nobody was really there to give her advice. And like, so like we was really just listening to people like kind of share their stories as they was going through it themselves, but they was like also young parents. So like a lot of the times the advice they was giving us was bad advice, you know, or the advice that they was giving her was bad advice. So, I would kind of say like it's vital for your circle, to have people that kind of walk the path before, knowledgeable about it, people you can kind of see like what they've done with their children, the kind of relationships they already established, to kind of trust their opinion, as well. So yeah, that for me would be the big thing, like just kind of have like your circle big. I'm not sure if it's a place to go to, like for information, but if it is, I'm not aware of it. So like I guess like make sites like that more knowledgeable, like um I know even just like trying to research, like doing like my own like, you know, information, trying to become like a good stepdad, like the books was limited at the time I was looking. So it wasn't even much information I could draw on it, even like lean on him. Honestly, I leaned on my step pop and I kind of was just asking him for advice at the time, And I was really that was my really only source of knowledge. So, that was also difficult. So it was kind of like I didn't really know what to give her because when my stepdad was introduced to me, I was already 12. So, like I was talking, I was moving, you didn't really know what to do with a newborn. So that's where I'm at. How about you guys?
So, in terms, you made a good point. You said it's about who your circle is and, just who you have involved. And you said you did some research, but you couldn't really find like enough resources out there. And I think we were talking previously about the different places, and I was referring to the Saint Mommies and all that stuff. There are an abundance of mommy boards out there, but you are correct. The amount of dad boards is limited. Now, Reddit might have it because Reddit has everything, but I will also tread lightly with Reddit because, they be a little wild in them streets. Any peer-to-peer advice groups, I would definitely say you've got to filter through the nonsense to get to the gems.
So even with that, regardless of what the source is, that's my perspective, that you need to sift through it. You got to read the information, but also read in between the lines and understand what applies to your context versus, because the thing about it is with parenthood, the one thing you learn, especially as you have multiple children like we have, you learn that no two children are alike. So you can try and apply what worked for you as a child, but what you'll find is that your child's personality is unique to them. So even though they come from you, you're responsible for being one of their primary influences. They're going to pick and choose from what you provide them and take what they want and run with it and develop their own personality. So it's not like A mentioned earlier, like it's not this linear path that you have to travel. Like what worked for your first child ain't gonna work for your second child, and it's not gonna work for the third one. Like you got to approach each one like a new independent project and deal with what comes, and try to have a broad perspective. Like you got to have your lines in the sand, things that you don't want to accept, that you will accept, but you also got to give them room to be them as well within reason, right?
Yeah. So Jetty, coming in as the new dad, how do you feel, first of all, about, do you feel like there was enough information? I'm not stripping you, I promise, it's just hot. Do you feel like there was enough information for I didn't want to, hey, fuck it. I didn't want to scare anybody who's watching this back on YouTube. There's nothing freaky happening here. But did you feel like there was enough information for you as a new dad? And I know I had an opportunity to talk with you and mom, but share your perspective just coming in as a new dad. Like, do you feel like you had an abundance of resources? How was this for you?
I thought I did until she came.
See how it goes.
You know what I'm saying? Like I grabbed a couple of books. I grabbed a couple of books from my lady. You know what I mean? God bless. I was gifted by families such as yourselves, and just grabbing books myself, that really emphasize pregnancy and parenthood more in the favor of the woman as the mother, but also with a nod to the man as the father as well. Of course, once again, social media and various channels and avenues and outlets there too. But, as helpful, because there was still helpful tools and information that was there, but as helpful as it was, it's nothing like when you're 10 toes deep. You know what I mean? For example, one of the things that clicked to me just now was how very important it is to let go. Just to let go of everything that you thought that you were beforehand, the things that you thought was life. Like sleep is different, waking hours are different, priorities are different. You know what I mean? You have to relinquish that old self to the new being that you become, because there's no way of balancing the both worlds. I know there was a little bit of frustration that I had to deal with as a new father, with saying, okay, yeah, I could do this and I could still. It's like, nah, bro, like you're gonna have to put some things aside. This is really about her right now, And I kind of took it hard on myself initially, because I was like, yeah, I got a lot of stuff I want to do. And then when you start to get into the groove of it, you understand that it's much less about the things that you want to do, and it's much more about understanding and respecting. The more that you fall into the groove, and the more that you trust the process, the more you tap into a different version of yourself that allows for these other avenues to open and blossom. So you still can access the things that you were looking for. You just have to do it in a different way.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with what you're saying there, because I've always had my own personal aspirations and things that I wanted to achieve. Same for A. I know she has the same. And in a relationship, if you have a partner, a good co-parent, one of the things that you are going to need from them is to give you some room to indulge in that, you know what I mean? So that you aren't suffocated by the act of being a parent only, because while that may be a very key element of your life, if not your primary role in life, and everything else can start to be secondary to some extent, it can't be your only thing, right? Like you need to retain a piece of yourself. Like you need to be more than Jetty the dad, Jay the dad, Dash the dad, like because
A the mom,
yeah. And I think I was just taking it all in, like looking at us on the screen, like this is unique that we have three men here giving their perspective as what they think parenthood should be like, what it is like, and able to reflect on what it has been like, right? Because we got one out of the house, so we can talk from a more veteran perspective, so to speak. But I think it's great.
You guys all actually have said a couple of things that just set so many thoughts off. So one of the things you said, Jetty, was about wanting to retain who you were, but I take it a step further. Dare I say, counter that you can't retain who you were. You are not going to be the same person you were before you child, and that goes for man and woman. And when I say goes for man and woman, that goes for an involved man, because you can donate sperm all day long. We know that's a thing, but being involved and active that's a different facet, and we're going to speak to that in a moment. But as a mom, I think one of the things that they talk to you about the science of biology, baby. The baby grows in you, and your body is going to be a little hotel for this little parasite that's growing, and you're going to birth this parasite, very much alien style, at the end of the 10 months. And they talk to you very generically about hormones and things like that, but they don't really talk to you about what those hormones do to you. When I tell you 2 o'clock in the morning, watching You Could Just Donate 75 cents a day commercials had me in tears, okay? In tears. 3 o'clock in the morning. Jared sleeping was a source of contention for me.
That's so real.
Angered. How dare he, after working 2 jobs, come home to this house and go to sleep while I am not able to sleep? Not because the baby's moving and wilding, although they definitely do that, because your hormones are racing so sporadically through your body, you can't even control the time of day you want to sleep. How dare you flatulate and make me vomit? Like, how dare you? I'm never gonna let that go. Don't you dare. I'm never gonna let it go.
Even beyond that, like snoring was a point of contention.
I couldn't, like, everything riled me up. His cologne, the smell of eggs and bacon in the morning, like things I once loved, I hate it. I want Pringles and pie and Oreo at the same time. Like, none of this makes sense. You know what I mean? They talk about the cravings, but they don't talk about how weird all of this gets emotionally for you. And at the same time, you're just kind of like, there is something growing in there and you can feel it. And it's a weird sensation. And my pregnancies each differed, but the first time I did not feel all warm and fuzzy inside. I was very like displaced in my own body and very, very like, who is this stranger? You like, what's going on here? I know there's a baby in there, and it didn't matter how many times I looked at an ultrasound. With my first pregnancy, I did not see her and like connect immediately. It was just kind of like, okay, there's this thing here. They're telling me these are feet and fingers and legs, but you know, feels like a football player. Like, there was so much stuff going on that I couldn't really find myself in the process of all that. And quite frankly, it didn't get better after birth either. Like, after I gave birth, it was like this sudden crash of hormones. And they don't tell you how instant that happens. After your body has gone through labor, and I labored, had a C-section, and then so all this trauma has happened to your body. Nobody ever talks about how traumatizing birth really is, because they make it seem like it's this natural process. It's still traumatizing, okay? And you're expected to just automatically, you know, bond with this kid, throw it on a tits, get a feed. It's going to be so easy. And it's not. And then that crash of hormones and emotions come. And this is where I believe that single parenting should not ever be a thing, because you really need your partner through that time, but only if your partner is worth 2 cents. Because if they're not, they're more of a headache than the baby. So it's like, your body's changing, you're going through all these things, you need adequate support, right? And I think the narrative in which men have been taught to support mothers, while I do believe it's changing, after having a conversation with my mom, you would think Jared was a saint for doing what I believe he should have done as the father of the child. But y'all get taught differently about your role in parenting right from the beginning. It's almost as if like, oh, baby, hands off, like, that's mom's job. And if you don't have an active partner, it's going to make things so much harder. And as a woman, they tell you post-baby blues can happen. They don't talk to you about postpartum depression and how intense it can be, how it can turn into postpartum psychosis, what that even looks like, what that feels like, all in the midst of you trying to take care of this baby who's vomiting and eating every 5 seconds and tearing your nipples up to the point that they're bleeding, and you're alternating between bottle feeding and this, that, and the third. It's so much. It's like, I was waiting for that spiritual moment to kick in, and it took a while. It took a while. And I wanted to be the mom who said, oh, I love parenthood. It's so beautiful. But the God's honest truth was, I hated it. I hated every moment of it. As I matured and had children, as I got older, my perspective shifted slightly. I had a different father for my last 2 children. I was also older. Age plays a huge factor. Maturity level plays a huge factor. Being an adult plays a big factor in how well you can adjust to things. And that's only if you're a healthy adult. So while I believe there's information out there, the raw and the gritty, our mothers don't share that, mostly because to them, that's a part of the journey, like, that you're just supposed to know. Like, that struggle that they've been through, it's just like, well, that's what we do. Because they come up from a generation where fathers weren't even allowed in the room sometimes having babies. And they definitely weren't interested in night feedings and all that, because they were like, look, I gotta get up and go to work. The baby is you. I'm the breadwinner, and the baby is your responsibility. So the grandmothers and some of our mothers are coming from those spaces where men weren't actively involved. So the conversation never comes from them because it's almost to them like, you expect your baby dad to be involved and on that level, like, because girl, it wasn't like that for me. And so you really don't get a lot of camaraderie there. You really don't get a lot of, you get a lot of suck it up. Like this is life. And some women being so concerned about being viewed as a bad mom, they won't say all of these things. They won't talk about all of these things. And they're definitely not sharing it with their partners, or when they're trying to share it with their partners don't understand. Now she's a hysterical woman. Now I need to go, check another shorty because she at home stressing me out. Like, this is how those circumstances happen.
So you said what you said about that. Dash, I think what you spoke on was a real unique perspective, because you said you were with somebody who was pregnant and trying to date them as well as help them.
Can I just ask why?
Pre-pregnancy and post-pregnancy.
What was it? Because a lot of men would not.
Actually, I didn't. Well, she carried small, so like initially I thought it was like a bare belly that I could just work off of her. Like
that's not like Friday. That's not like Friday.
So I was just like, and she was cute. We was young. Like we was mad young. I was like 20 at the time. So like,
and that's amazing at 20 that you were like, whatever. Now I will say this. I know. No, I was visibly pregnant. I was not a carry small. When I was pregnant with my daughter, men definitely tried to bag while I was very visibly
pregnant. Yeah.
They wasn't invested in being stepdad. They definitely wasn't trying to be stepdad, but they were. So what prompted you to feel like this is a ride I'm willing to take with her? Because that's a unique experience, especially at that age.
What was my thinking at that time? I don't know, because now I look back and I think I was crazy, but like I don't know, I was feeling her. The baby thing didn't really scare me so much.
Not the baby dad thing. You wasn't concerned about the baby dad?
No, because I already had beat him up before, so like I already knew.
Just, we don't condone violence on the A&J podcast.
Yes,
do not ban us.
We're talking about a past Dash. This was many moons ago. But no, he didn't really strike too much fear into me. But because of that. So honestly, I was probably just young and dumb, and just thought I could just do anything, and it didn't really seem like too big of a task. I also had this super idea of where I thought parenting was going to be. So, like I thought like it's kind of be like this cool breeze, kind of had it mapped up how my life is going to unfold. So I was comfortable with where my life was at, kind of embarked on the journey. But, like Jetty said, it was different than the idea. The idea was different than the reality.
Always.
What do y'all feel the role of a father is, especially when it comes to having a newborn? What do you think the role of a father entails?
Like everything you said. Oh, go ahead, Jetty.
No, I was just saying balance, man. Balance. There's something that my lady told me that, is one of those elephants in the room that not a lot of people like to mention, but it was even to an extreme extent, rather, it was even illustrated in one of 50 Cent's spinoffs from Power, Raising Kanan, in the first episode, where Joey Badass was talking to Kanan's mom, and he was just talking, like they were talking about power in a sense. And Joey Badass was talking to the mom, being like, that's why I wanted to deal with the man, because you had too much invested in your son. This is the streets. We are men. We can separate ourselves from our kin. You can't, because you gave birth to this child. So in paralleling that, to what I mean by a father's responsibility. One of the father's major responsibilities is balance. We are the parent that is not the carrier. So because of that, there's a heavier bulk and responsibility in a physical sense with the woman being the mother than it is with the father, with the man being the father. So with that being said, there's just like there's a heavier awareness and mindfulness that needs to be acknowledged and executed as far as the man is concerned. For example, hormones going off the charts. You got to know exactly what it means when the word says, "Hey, when you get struck on one cheek, show the other cheek." Because there's going to be some things that's going to be said. There's going to be some things that's going to be done. There's going to be some circumstances that an old you might respond in one way, where you're going to have to understand this is her, but it's not her. I need to fall back and shut up. There's going to be instances in which, you're going to have to wake up in the morning, change some diapers. There's going to be instances in which, like right now, my lady, she's so great. She allows me to as much of a degree as she can for me to rest when I have work. But there's sometimes that I'm like, you know what? Let me take her. Let me take my daughter off your hands so that you can rest. You know what I'm saying? And then when I come back, it can't be all me time. You know what I'm saying? Like I have to initiate the point in which I've been away for several hours. All right, you do what you need to do. Even if it's something that you need to do for the baby, you at least go ahead and do that. Because look, it's hard for a woman to be the 24-hour mother and still be the 24-hour woman. It's a difference. You know what I'm saying? Like you could really be entrenched in the world of being a mother and go certain amounts of times without the shower that you need, without eating right as much as you want to, without even being in the space of mind that is healthy and conducive enough for you to continue to move forward as both a woman and a mother. You know what I mean? So a man's responsibility as a father, one of the major responsibilities is to engage upon allowing balance to be prevalent in a relationship.
Preach. Oh, I love a self-aware king. Ain't that what the young Johns be saying?
Oh,
stand a self-aware king. Yes.
I'm out of here. Thank you, and good night.
Yes, we can't be quoting.
I don't speak Hotepian. I'm sorry. Thank you.
We can't be quoting the young Johns.
I had to do it. Yeah, I had to.
They spitting the correct math.
This from my young Johns out here, like we stand a king who, because here, me and my mom kind of got into a little tiff the other day because she's definitely old school, and dare I say she's old school with a splash of caucus. And she basically she was discussing this video because my mom's on Facebook heavy because she's old, and they love the videos, puppy dogs, all that stuff, men being fathers. And she was so impressed, right? Because dad was doing the little mom, mind you, mom is involved. Mom left the house for a couple hours. Okay. And dad was doing the baby's hairs and getting them ready for school. Oh my God. And the comments were like what I was just saying. We stand a king who, and I have a staunch stance on I am not finna, give y'all accolades for what we do every day. What you should be doing anyway as the parent. Like that is like me applauding you for knowing to shower and wipe your behind after you drop a deuce. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to stand by the toilet and clap you up because you did what you ought to have done. There's a scripture that was like, you've done what you ought to have done, you good for nothing, slave. Always rings a bell in my head when I think about this, because it's like the bar is set so low for y'all. The bar is set so incredibly low as far as the expectations of what a father's involvement in his child's life is from birth on, that doing the bare minimum gets y'all thousands of views and millions of likes and, brand partnerships from Target because, you dressed your baby and put some diapers on it and powdered it. Oh my God. And I'm just like, that's powerful to core, but you have kids. I don't care if you're the mom or the dad. And it's that part of parenting that I wish got discussed more, which is emphasizing to men, like your role should match mom's role. Maybe not exactly in everything we do, because as men and women, we have different roles, and we know that as fathers and as mothers. But some things, certain responsibilities, all tasks, all that shared and equal. Unless the mom is exclusively breastfeeding, there's not a reason in the world why y'all can't get up in the middle of the night and make a bottle.
Well, I think that brings us back to what you said, like what's the dad's role? And I think while I agree with what Jetty said in terms of balance, I think our role as men today is really being present, and like being present in more than just the physical sense, but being present and active in the child's life. You know what I mean? And that balance comes in from sharing the load, right?
Yes.
You know, I think balance is a sub-directive of being present, right? Because especially with us, and not to make it racy, but with us being people of color, Black people specifically, there are so many absent fathers for whatever reason. You know what I mean? The mom and dad wasn't a real relationship. Dad wasn't feeling mom. He had to go do his own thing. Dad just didn't want to be a parent, blah, blah, blah. Incarceration, death, whatever it may be. There's so many excuses as to why Black men specifically are not present in the home, right? When we have the opportunity to be there and be effective, we need to take advantage of that opportunity. You know, there are various reasons why we may not be allowed to do that. We may not, want to do that, but like our kids need us. Like we're at the end of the day, the kids, we're trying to produce productive, effective human beings and contribute to society via them. Like we have to be present, and we have to be part of the co-parenting, the family structure, whether that means you and mom are together or not. Right. Like we have to be present. And there were times when A and I were thinking of going our separate ways. There was never any doubt in my mind, though, that I was still continuing to be present in my children's life.
And to be clear, there was never any doubt that I was going to allow him to be. Like I was not finna be the messy mom. Like even with my child's first father, whom absolutely detested that man, but I left every opportunity and avenue open to him. Now, whether he took advantage of it or not is a different story, but I left every opportunity open to him to have access to the child, because I understood this is bigger than my personal feelings about you. I procreated with you. Here's where we're at. Like, you should have access to your child. Unless you in these streets doing dangerous stuff, or you're a pedophile or something. Like, I don't believe in using children as a pawn to get back at dad. Now, I'm sure he would tell a different story if he was in front of this mic, but that's not. I don't agree with that. So I want to be very clear here as we're discussing the roles of moms and dads, whether you're married, single, or otherwise. Children aren't pawns in your relationships. And I think that's a really important thing that parents need to understand. A lot of times, inadvertently, when we don't find that balance, moms or dads, you can start to resent the role of parenthood, much in the way Jessica Rose mentioned. I think that comes from when you don't have that time and that ability to find whoever the new you is going to be after childbirth. And as much as I think there's a narrative almost kind of impressed upon us as women that we have to sacrifice who we are, our wants, our interests to be good moms. And we are supposed to support our men while they pursue better careers, education options, being the best rapper they can be, whatever. Like, we're supposed to be like, yes, king, I got you, ride or die, woo. And we're supposed to put ourselves on the back burner. But that's not fair. And it's also not true. Because us being able to maintain some sense of self is going to help us be able to be better mothers. I tell people all the time, you cannot pour from an empty cup. So if you're not replenishing, refueling, renourishing, you're going to be a crappy parent. And that's going to be more harmful to your kid than being like, well, I was there. Yeah, but if my interactions with you while I was there were full of bitterness and anger and resentment because you were an unhappy mom who didn't take a step back, like that's going to have a more traumatic effect than you going out a couple times a month with your girlfriends, or doing your thing, or telling dad, hey, I need spa time, or I need to sneak off and go get my hands and my feet done, or whatever the case may be. There's this ideology that is pushed upon moms. It's like, if you're not in self-sacrifice mode 24/7, you're not a good mom. I'm having conversations with my mom right now that are incredibly insightful and painful almost, because she's 68 and she does not know a life where she was not sacrificing. She watched her mom do it. She did it for us. And so when I started to ask her questions, it started to dawn on her. And I'm like, she's like, I had to make a choice between y'all getting new shoes and, me going out bowling with my girlfriends. And I'm like, hear me out. I'm the youngest. By the time I was 14, I had my own job. I was already paying for my own clothes. My two oldest siblings were out the house. So it was just me and my brother. You had gotten remarried by the time I was 15. You didn't have to pay for as much because, we're not growing kids like that. Now we kind of stable. Why didn't you start doing something for yourself then? She couldn't come up with an answer. She didn't even understand the concept of, oh, I got a little bit more spending money in my pocket now. Like, I can go do things. Never even clicked for her.
But I think that's something that we've discussed in the past, like as our kids were getting older and things where we kind of got into more of a rhythm, it was hard to kind of snap out of it at some point, where it's like, as a parent, like you get so accustomed to trying to take care of your kids, take care of your households. When you have an opportunity to do something for yourself, it almost can create a feeling of guilt.
Oh, like, absolutely.
If I do this, what happens if this happens? What do the kids need that I'm not addressing, and I'm indulging myself?
For years, if I did something, if I bought something, it was like a whole psychological process of me talking myself off the ledge. I'm like, hear me out. I'm not the Louis Vuitton store. I'm literally in Walmart. Okay. And I'm like talking myself off the ledge because I bought 2 candles and some press-on nails. Like, oh, look at me being wild in these streets. And literally felt like I had to go down the children's aisle to go get the babies something, because the idea of spending on myself was so absurd. And I realized, now much later in life, that is a thing I think a lot of parents feel, not just women, especially again, if you're an involved father, if you are an active father. I feel like a lot of us feel like if we're not sacrificing, like we're doing something wrong. But if you don't have to sacrifice all of yourself to be a good parent, do you have to? Like, do you have to give up every inch of yourself? Because it's impossible to do. It's impossible to do. You cannot give up every single piece of yourself to try to be a good parent, because it'll be to your detriment. And oftentimes, and you'll recognize, I know baby is still a baby girl, you'll recognize, especially as they get older, you could be draining yourself dry trying to accomplish something with this child that the child may not even want. Not asking you for, not seeking, and rejecting repeatedly. And you draining yourself trying to do this thing because you just think it's the right way, when you are going to learn in time. You got to release some things. You got to relinquish some things, and you got to reserve some things for yourself. And that's absolutely important.
Yeah. That just hit us real soft spot, hit close to home, because that just humbled me. And looking back at my relationship with my mom while she was here, and I was in my whole rebellious teen, early 20s stage and whatnot, and she wanted me to go to college and be this, and I'm just like, well, no, I want to do this. And then years later, I have my daughter, and all these thoughts are running through my head, and hearing them reemphasized through you right now, it's just like it is important. It's extremely important to not only hold fast to your identity, but to also give yourself grace as far as being a parent. You know what I'm saying? Sacrifice. Yeah, that's just that just comes with everything in life. Especially being a parent as well. But if sacrifice becomes so much of your identity as being a parent, then you run the real risk of, once again, as we were saying, regretting your parenthood, regretting not doing more, even looking and not even understanding who you were outside of being a parent, which is, of course, exacerbated in situations that don't lend themselves to healthy relationships, i.e., not having a partner that's present, as Jay said,
Dash, as a person who has not yet had children, if you could name the things you want to know most about parenthood to kind of set yourself up for the most success ever, what would you be looking for?
Jesus. What I'll be looking for? I guess
that's a good place to start, though. Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My bad.
No, you're right. Jesus first before everything,
He was the ultimate representation of his father, so he knows some things. Okay.
I don't. You know what? I don't even know, because even just living day to day with my nephew, that what the kids need changes every day. So I guess it would be patience. At least where I'm at this facet of my life, it would be patience. Even as much as I love my nephew, I still lose my temper and my cool.
Yes.
Where I'm just and I'd be walking through the door, be after 12 hours of work, and he just yo, uncle, I'm hungry, rubbing his belly, and it's just nigga, I mean, baby, I know.
No, you said it. We all do it. I don't care what nobody said. I know baby girl ain't that old yet. We do it in here. In here we like
I think I just want to relax. What? So yeah, I guess it'd be patience first, and then after that, it'd be I guess I want a step-by-step guide to not messing them up.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Right.
Listen,
you gonna have to write that.
You have to write that book, because here's the thing. I will never. Our parents do the best they can. I know that's a phrase that has dual meaning for a lot of people.
It's a lot of nuance.
It's a lot of nuance to that.
Mm-hmm.
Parents do the best that they can. It doesn't mean that their best doesn't do damage. And that's something that as a mother, I had to recognize. As a daughter, I had to recognize. I can acknowledge that you did your best and still acknowledge the parts and components that did me damage. And the same for my child. My child being an adult and having those conversations with her and talking about parenting with her were very eye-opening and very sobering, but also very effective in helping me change up how I was doing things. One of the key things that I think I've learned throughout my, dare I say, 20 years of experience is your children have a voice. Listen to them.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're really quick to silence our kids often culturally. And just from a perspective, most of us, especially when I was born, most of us were born with kids are seen, not heard, or that's the parent, show me respect. Asking questions is talking back. I mean, expressing a thought outside of what your parents might catch you a little, you don't know. So that energy, I had to undo that in myself with my kids. My daughter, I always feel the worst because she's the oldest. So she got the brunt of my beginning stages of parenting. But I realized we fared better when she felt heard and validated. I don't have to agree with what she says. And guess what? She doesn't have to agree with what I say. But the way that I want to be heard and respected is the same way that your child wants to be heard and respected. And how we as parents engage with them, teach them how to expect respect from people. Yeah. Teaches them how to assert their voices when they should. If we are forever silencing them, when will they speak up? When are they going to learn to speak up? When are they going to learn to challenge the status quo if they need to? When are they going to learn to ask the pertinent questions if we have not created a safe environment in which they could do so? It's incredibly hard to operate from that space if you don't come from that. It has to be a conscious effort to be like, I need to do something different than what I had so that they can be better than me. Because that's the goal. We want them to be better than us. We want them to have more advantage. And I also think culturally, we need to break this habit of thinking that we got to be tough with them. We got to prepare them for the real world. The world is going to be vicious enough. What we should be doing is creating safe environment for both them and us to come home and have peace. Your home is your sanctuary. And creating a think tank for them, allowing them to express their ideas, their thoughts, and even, dare I say, us taking the opportunity to learn from them. Parenting can be a two-way street. And I know that sounds weird, but in a lot of ways, sometimes in parenting our children, we are reparenting ourselves and unlearning things that we learned. So it can be an incredible experience if we let it be, but that requires so much internal work. So I think my biggest regret about parenting was being so young, having my first child, not understanding breaking cycles, not understanding trauma, not understanding why it was important for me to have therapy and all of those things before having children. Because if you can do those things before having children, you are off to the races. You're having a great start. If you can be self-aware before having children, it'll be beautiful. I think talking to my daughter, she's 19. I was already a parent by the time I was her age, like going on 20. My child was going on 2. She's so self-aware in a way that I was not at her age, and can recognize where she needs work and things like that, and has a desire to want to be in a healthier space before she has children. I wish that I had that, but that lets me know that, like, she's doing better than I was doing, you know what I mean, at that age. And that is a beautiful thing. I wish that my mom's experience was just different, and I can't knock her for that. My mom came from a different time, different generation. My mom is like the proverbial good kid, right? So she didn't understand rebellion. She didn't rebel. She never rebelled. She never picked up a cigarette. She never picked up a drink. She did not have sex before marriage. She's been with 2 men her entire life, like my dad and her second husband. Like, that was her life. So she didn't understand when she had kids who was in these streets wilding. You know what I mean? Like, for her, it was like, what are we doing? What is this? How are you my offspring? Like, not that I wish my mom had been a worse person, because I don't, but I do wish that, you know, she had the sage wisdom that maybe I needed from her. And not that she didn't have wisdom, she did, but she couldn't understand where I was coming from, and she couldn't even visualize herself in my shoes or my siblings' shoes. So that made it incredibly difficult to feel like I had a safe space. So there's a lot of things that I've learned from my relationship with my mom, and then turning around and having a daughter of my own. And now raising 2 boys, it's a whole different experience having boys versus girls. They tell you it's not, but it really is. It's 2 different animals. And also having a male figure present is a total different experience for me. So I just wish that was in the handbook. I wish those things were in the handbook.
Yeah. If there was a handbook for parenting, I imagine it would only be a couple pages, because I grew up with different psychological books on like parenting, child rearing, and stuff like that in the house. I was raised by a social worker. My mom was a social worker, so she read a lot of things about behavior and stuff like that, and she had Dr. Spock books and stuff like that in the home, but like at the end of the day, I didn't fit the mold of what those books provided, and I don't think that my kids fit any mold of anything that we researched. A was good in providing me information. I remember her sending me a link to a blog that actually tracked your pregnancy, like, and it continued on after the child was born. Like 2 years later,
5 years,
I'm still getting emails like saying, okay, so your child is 36 months and they should be hitting this milestone and you should be doing this. And like, honestly, I am a strong disbeliever in there being a playbook to parenthood, because I've seen everything that I thought I would do as a parent with my child. I don't want to say everything, but a lot of what I thought I would do and the type of parent that I wanted to be go out the window. And it was like, okay, I gotta be what this child needs me to be, what my mate needs me to be, what society dictates that I need to pass on to this child right now, what my lifestyle at this point in my life is dictating that I need to pass on to this child. Like I'll be the first to admit that my kids grew up rather sheltered because of a desire to protect them from the things that I was exposed to that I didn't think were harmful as I went through them, but I mean, have definitely changed how I move through life, have probably left me with different types of trauma, based on things that I've seen and experienced that I just want to shield them from. You know what I mean? So like, I never thought I would be that parent. I've always been of the mindset that we need to get bumps and bruises. But once you start raising a child, you're like, yo, if I scrape my elbow doing that, I'm gonna tell you not to do that so you can avoid that. You know what I mean? I want you to go through life as unscathed as you possibly can be.
Yeah.
The sobering thing about that is your kid might look at you and be like,
I want my bumps and bruises.
I know.
Like, I hear what you're saying, but I'm gonna do me. Like,
exactly.
Right,
and that's the thing. You can't anticipate what that child is going to be like. You can want the best from it as much as you want to, and it may not mean jack diddly squat to them, like when they have their mind set on what they want to do. I do think you just said something about wanting to protect them. There is a style of parenting that I've seen that I find quite disturbing, where it's like, well, I had to struggle, so you gotta struggle. It's okay. And I'm like, being that you did have to struggle should be the exact reason you don't want your offspring to. Am I missing something here? Like, it's those type of commentary or comments that I see that make me feel like we need to broaden this conversation about parenting. We need to be like opening up dialogue. Like right now, I know gentle parenting is like the term on TikTok, Instagram, like all the little mommy boards and stuff. And it's a lot of Black folk trying it. And I love to see it because I think we need to. But there's like this urge, it's like, no, like that Johnny just needs his little behind whooped there. Rashawn just needs his little tail whooped. And I'm like, listen, let me ask you something. Did a whooping ever really fix what you did? Or did you just find a way to do what you wanted to do without getting caught?
I don't know. A couple whoopings put me right back into the line.
Nope. Well, you won them good ones, Johnny. Because let me tell you, a whooping did absolutely nothing for me. It just made me a lot more stealthy. It made me a lot more sneaky. It made me really good at lying. It made me really good at hiding. It made me really good at fearing but not respecting, because I didn't respect you enough to stop doing what you asked me to do. I just found an alternative way of doing it.
I think, and Jetty, please provide your opinion. I definitely want to hear what you got to say about it. But for me, it definitely did make me want to be more stealthy to an extent, but it also put me in line to a place where, like, I'll pick my spots. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm a cross that line when I feel like it's worth crossing that line. But them beatings told me like, yo, I might not want to risk it for this. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Like, after a certain age, like, I definitely didn't care. I could square up. I was bigger than my mom by the time I was like, my mom was beating either. My dad was the one giving out the beatings. And by the time I was like 11, 12, 13, he wasn't even in the house anymore. But like, my parents tell stories now to this day. Like, everybody in my family, don't matter who it is, father side, dad, mom side, they be like, Leisha was a little feisty one. My dad be trying to whoop me. I be fighting back, calling him a dirty pig, biting him, running around. Like, and that they be telling this story all the time. Like, you remember that time when you tried to run out the house and down the street? Like, that was me. I didn't care how many beatings you gave me. I was going to tell you how I felt. You was going to hear it, and I was still going to do what I wanted to do. It didn't fix anything. And so they just stopped beating me because it was like, this ain't no point at this, like, because she don't care. I didn't. And a lot of kids feel that way.
And the crazy part about it is, like, my daughter is like that. My youngest son is like that. My middle son is more like me. He like, I'm
not trying to catch these hands.
He like, right. Yo, that hurt when you did that. Like, I don't want to go through that no more. Like, let's be chill. Like, let's just keep it cool. You know, let's have a good time. Can't we all just get along?
He gets it. He gets it. He's like,
okay, and that goes to show how different children can be. Like, and our middle child was never the one who needed no beat down or nothing. Like, you pop his hand and you just raise your voice and he was gonna melt. Like, just you do that with the oldest and the youngest. They looking at you like, So my duly noted parents.
So our oldest was a little more on the deceptive side. My youngest is like he like, you know, you popped me, but that really didn't hurt, and I still want to do what I was doing. So you know what I mean?
Unfortunately, he's like the worst of me and his sister, which is just like personality wise, we gonna be in for it because she like you said, she was more deceptive. She was like me in that sense where she got creative. Now he's like me in the sense by the time I was like 15, 16, I stopped sneaking. And just literally told my mom what time it was. Like, there was no more lies. Like, after getting caught, like, I think I smoked a black and mild in her bathroom. In the crib. And she came home. I forgot to clean the ashes out the sink. And she was like, "Are you smoking?" And I was just like, "Yep." By the time I was like, and she was just like, "Don't smoke in the house." And so therefore, after she would come home, I'd be outside with my peoples, like, outside. I'd step off her porch, go stand on the sidewalk with my peoples and be chiefing. Like, my mom's little gold veil pull up. I knew she was rolling her eyes. I know she was rolling her eyes. She just was not more. Her and my stepdad set a curfew for me. I was 17 at the time, and I was working. My mom dropped me off at work. This is the summertime. She dropped me off, or spring. She dropped me off at work at 1:30 in the afternoon on a Friday. Okay. 1:30 in the afternoon. Mind you, I worked around the corner from the house. Literally, we all used to walk to work together. She dropped me off at 1:30. What time you get off, Alicia? Oh, yeah, 9:00. Okay. You want me to pick you up? No, we're gonna walk it back or whatever. This is a Friday. I didn't come home until Sunday at I don't know, almost 12 o'clock in the morning. When I got home, her and my stepdad, because at this point, my stepdad had done everything he could. He had put pliers on the door to keep the light. I used to climb in the little tiny kitchen window above the sink. Like, yeah. Like, look out. Like, you're not gonna lock me out. I'm drunk and I'm coming home and I'm going to bed. So when I got home from this party, she was so calm. It was scary. My mom just was like, you clearly are gonna do what you want to do. So you don't have a curfew anymore. I just need you to let me know if you're coming home or not. And that was it. That was the conversation. And I was like, all right, bet. And so I respected that. I would be like, I'm coming home or I'm not coming home. And that would be it. That was the end of the conversation. Like, my mom was so sick of me because I really was that kid who was just like, I'm not my sisters. I'm not finna lie, high, cheat. Still, I'm gonna just tell you like what's going on. You getting high? Yes. Cause what's the point at this point? Like, but because yeah, like now you see. So you think you think beating your child or doing the ABCs is gonna no.
That's girls. That's how girls.
Yeah, that's how like girls right there.
That's how girls get down. It's like,
you know what?
My mom was finding lighters. She found bags of weed in the car, packs of cigarettes, stuff like that.
My mom ain't know I smoked until I was 21.
I was in my 20s when she was finding this stuff, and I'm like, yo, that ain't mine. Such and such dropped that in the car. Like, yo, that's my lighter from
y'all
my
make me feel like trash. Y'all make me feel like trash. Because like,
let me tell you something.
I didn't want. I felt like I watched what my sisters would do. My brother was a pretty decent kid. My brother didn't really do too much until he was like in his 20s. I watched my sisters do the hide and the sneak and the lying, and I felt like all it did was cause arguments. That's it. That's all it did. It caused fights, arguments. It was mad tension and mad drama. And I'm like, I don't want to keep telling you I'm not doing something when we both know I am.
But hold on, Jetty, what was you about to say? You was like, let me tell you something. What was that thought?
Honestly, walking through these corridors of memory lane, I have to admit, one, beatings did that for me too. I'm on page with y'all. It made me really stealthy. It made me to the degree that even up until now, reforming from it, but I'm really good at lying if I want to lie. I'm really good at lying if I choose to lie. You know what I mean? But it also did something to the credit of what a beating would. Now, I don't want to advocate beating, but because you get beat for doing something that you're not supposed to do, even though it puts you in it tends to put a certain type of mind into a mind frame of wanting to go around the issue. You can't get away from having a certain acknowledgement of the issue that got you to beating in the first place. And I'll explain this. I went 13 years of my life lying to my mom about a lot of things, my virginity, smoking, drinking, just like you were saying, Jay. My mom would find lighters, she would find this and third, she would come to me, I'd be like,
that's
my homies. That's my homie. No, I wouldn't throw none of my homies' names under the bus. I just be like, that's you know what I mean, da. And shout out to Chev, because Chev, along with a couple other really close friends, family, was like, yo, man, you might as well tell your mom the truth. You know what I mean? And at the time, I was fearful because I was like, she's not going to understand. I'm going to break her heart. She's not going to understand. But it got to a point where the arguments peaked. And I had to sit with myself and I'm like, yo, we're arguing because she thinks I'm someone else. You know what I'm saying? And I did this. I gave her a facade to believe in. Yeah. And she's looking at this facade. And when this facade goes off a character, this is the response. Yeah. And the response leads me to go, well, you don't know who you're talking to. Here's who you're talking to. I'm going to respond as myself. And then my mom's like, who are you? I don't know this person.
Exactly.
And it got to a point I had to tell my mom, like, the last argument, it was a few years ago before she transitioned, and I thank God that I did. It broke her heart, but it made us closer before she was able to transition. I'm so thankful. And I was like, nah, I gotta tell you. It was like, this is wild. But I could have easily just continued to lie to her. Could have easily.
And Dash, you said something, I think, in a similar vein. Like you said, your mom didn't know what you was indulging in until you was in your 20s, right?
Oh yeah. Well, my mom found out I was smoking by accident. Like, I was smoking with my stepdad. And
That's funny.
So like we both got in trouble that day. One like I didn't tell my mom what I was doing. Then my stepdad, because he was condoning my actions and he was partaking with me, But I mean, my stepdad, he knew from high school. He actually called me. I want to say like one of my closing days at graduation from high school. He called me, blowing down like on my way. I would take like the long route, walking home, smoke a J, like really clear my mind before I had to enter the house. Spray back on my little smell good, and I'll be set. And like one day, I was feeling myself. I got a little too lazy, I got a little too close to the house, and he was driving around doing the same thing. He caught me, pulled me over. We just had a conversation about not doing it out in the open, especially being so young and being Black. And he just kind of, since that point, me and him we would just smoke on our own, and I would just kind of at that point, that kind of drew us closer. But yeah, my mom really didn't care for it too much, like
I bet she did.
It wasn't what she really seen for her son. But years later, I figured out, like she was doing the same thing as I was doing, as a kid. So, for her, it was just more so life circle repeating itself,
And I can feel that because, when my daughter divulged her activity to me, I was not happy. I understood it, but we ain't ever gonna be so cool that we about to be chiefing together and not sharing edibles. And she shared an experience with me where she was like agitated because she's up north, and her father, her donor, decided that he wanted to come visit with her and chief with her, and she was so annoyed. Like, what kind of father does that? She's like, who does? Because at this point, she's been raised by me. She's been raised by Jay. But she's been raised by us. So
right.
There's a boundary.
And the crazy thing about it is, like, when she was younger, we were living that lifestyle. Like, there were periods of our life that we know she knew what we were doing. We was smoking, we was getting high.
We never like did it in front of her, but like
she would find her way in her room,
like you can smell it. You know what I mean?
Hey, can I do this? Can you do?
That's what I do with my nephew.
And so it's really, and I think the hardest part of that is, although that's not my lifestyle now, is expecting her not to have been influenced by it in some way, shape, or form.
I was mad about it. Like, I ain't gonna hold you. Like, because when the changes that we made in our lifestyle was for our kids, as far as I'm concerned. You know what I mean? Maybe they might say something different. The changes we made were strictly for my kids, because if I didn't have kids, I could care less about what happens to me. Like, I'm gonna live and die by the consequences of my actions, you know what I mean? And I'm comfortable with that in every facet of life. Like, if I make a mistake and I have to suffer for it, that's fine. I don't want anybody else ever to suffer for me, especially not my kids, right? So I tried to straighten up and fly right and do everything and put them first and make sacrifices for them. So for her to do that, I was upset. Like, yo, like, why are you doing this? Like, I stopped doing this so you didn't have to do this.
Exactly.
Like, why are you doing this now? Like, you've had every opportunity where you don't need to do this. Never mind the fact that I did too. Like, I grew up with a parent who indulged in weed and alcohol and all that stuff like that. Not to a way to where it was impacting me, but I was aware of it. So, like, I didn't have to be doing that, but I did it because it was my choice. But when the shoe was on the other foot and I was a parent and this is a child, I'm like, yo, you breaking my heart. Why is you doing this?
And it's like the reel of memories plays back. And I'll never forget when I was like 19. So she was going on 1 at the time. I was maybe on my way. Yeah, I was getting ready to turn 18. I don't even think I was 19 yet. And she was about to be 1. Or I might have been 20, but she was in toddler stage. and she was showing her little personality very early in life. Like she was letting me know, you're gonna be in trouble, mom. Like she was just letting me know, and she was the cutest thing. Everybody loved her. She was so charismatic, yada. But she had a little tooth. Terrible twos was a rough time. I don't know if anybody ever warned you about it. I know it sounds cute because it's terrible twos. No,
they scary.
It's DEFCON 5, my nigga, and you're going to want to pull your hair out.
Strangle that little kid.
Strangle that thing. And so I'll never. I called my mom on the phone. I said, "Mommy," she said, "Yes, I'm so sorry for whatever I did because." This child, like she's a demon. She's spawned of Satan. Like she is I don't know where she came from. My mom laughed at me hysterically on the phone. She said, "How old is she? 2? You ain't seen nothing yet. Hold on to the britches, little girl." And she wasn't lying. Because 16 years later, like 16 years later, I'm still holding on to my britches. I'm still like, I never. Like,
it's more than that.
No, I'm talking about from that phone call. But I'm like quite literally, and at this point, it's probably what 18 years later. She's about to be 20. It's like 18 years later after that phone call. I'm still holding on to my britches, and I really recognize that all of the things we think we're going to accomplish as parents, all of the ideologies, all of the dreams, goals, hopes, they're going to shift, change. Be elusive, just out of reach. Some things will be, and you got to just ride the wave. And I think that's the part of parenting I wish somebody had told me, that your children will break your heart inevitably at some point one day. And it's not going to, it may not be on purpose. It may just be that they decide to live a lifestyle you don't agree with. They may decide to do some things that you don't want them to do. They may decide they want to be a person that you didn't want them to be. You have to prepare yourself for that. And the heartbreaks will be little and the heartbreaks will be great. But at the end of the day, you're still going to love that kid. That child is still going to be yours.
And
like,
that's the foundation of everything, right? Is that love. Because the way I look at it, and this is not necessarily my perspective about how I was raised, but it is the perspective I get when I talk to my peers about what they went through and everything. Like, a lot of people grow up and the glass is half full for them, right? They look at their parenting, the circumstances, and they were like, yo, even if they think their mom or dad was cool or their parents was cool, they'd be like, yeah, but they didn't do this. I wish they had done this, that, and the third. You know, it's always that the kids always see what they didn't get. As a parent, your mindset is, I'm giving you the best that I can at this point in time with the knowledge and information I have at hand. The kid is selfish though. The perspective of a child is a selfish one. They're never going, like right now, there's a knock at my door right now.
After they were told, don't knock on the door.
Their perspective is, but I just need to say this. I need to do this. If you had just done that for me, the quality of my life would have been so much better. So like when you can come to that recognition and understand and accept that, what your best is never going to be good enough for them, that they're always going to have that, yeah, but if you had just bought me them Jordans that I wanted and not those Air Forces,
those and ones,
like those Air Forces was cool, but I really wanted them Jordans. You broke my heart because you ain't get them Jordans. Like, it'd be little stupid stuff.
If I got that PS5 and not that Xbox,
when you ain't get me that game, I went to school and I wilded out because I ain't had that game. If I had just had that game, I'd be a whole different person today. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's stuff like that kids will go back and reference, and it is so unfair to you. Like, but you got to accept it. Like, at the end of the day, love is what's going to power you past all of that and help you say, like, you know what? I'm sorry, but I did the best I could. Like, you got to respect that. Just like I got to respect your opinion and you entitled to that, you got to respect where I'm coming from. And if y'all can meet in the middle on that, I think as a parent, you did your job. Like, you know what I mean?
All right. So you kind of set the tone for the wrap-ups. Jetty and Dash, whoever wants to take it first, what are your closing thoughts on parenting in general?
Get out now. Run.
Hey, we ain't even had a year yet. Wait, you can't.
No. Little comic relief. My parting word, my parting thought would be, I would really have to emphasize patience, like Dash said, honestly. And it's something that the both of you, A and J, y'all touched upon as far as parenting easing you into a world where you start to understand how you were parented, and you start to see reflections of the energy that you give to your child as far as how it grooms you as well. You know, I could say at first, when my daughter would be screaming her head off for that food and I couldn't do anything about it, I would get tense. My head would go to a place, and do some prayers and do some sitting down, and especially seeing how my lady moved and grooved through that. You understand, this is an infant that cannot articulate the way we can,
Right.
who just came into this existence through a vessel that he or she is still understanding themselves. And this is the one way that they have to communicate to you, to tell you that something is off,
Right.
to tell you that they want something. So it's extremely egotistical and dismissive for me to be immediately angry based upon something that I, for one, don't understand, still understanding, and based upon how I may feel about it. So patience is definitely a virtue. Patience is definitely a virtue.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm gonna echo that same sentiment. Patience, and I'm gonna say choosing the right partner, because listening to you guys, that's vital. Like, you want to have someone that's gonna have your back, y'all aligned in a similar way of thinking to raise these kids, and pray for the best from that. Walk with Jesus, and
Pray for the
let
best.
life.
Pray for the worst. Okay.
Yeah. Hope for the best. Pray for prepare for the worst and hope for the best.
Yeah.
That's what I got.
I think my one message to parents, and this is going to sound horrible, but hear me out. Parenting is a thankless job. It's going to be that until your child is an adult.
That sounds realistic.
I think there were many sobering moments throughout parenthood, and we still going, because we got a 14-year-old and we got a 6-year-old. But one of the most thankful moments, multiple, that I've been able to have is my daughter telling me, yeah, you did some things wrong. You got some things wrong. But you doing A, B, and C made me more effective here. Me being raised by y'all and not having a different experience has taught me how to be grateful for y'all parenting. I'm going to be okay because y'all gave me A, B, and C. Like, those moments are only happening because she's an adult and she's out of the home, and now she's experiencing life on her own. And we all know it. We've all done it. We've all become adults, stepped into our adulthood lives, and recognized some things, became cognizant of some things that we weren't necessarily aware of because ego wouldn't allow us to be when you're prideful and young. So it's going to be a thankless job until your child is old enough to put to practice what you've taught them, which means that patience, as you guys both pointed out, is going to be the virtue you need, because it might be a long while before you see a return on your investment. Okay.
That's big facts.
And that's the reality of the situation. However, always remember, these children did not ask to come into this world. We brought them here.
Mm-hmm.
So despite how tumultuous it can be, it's our responsibility beyond when they turn 18. And will always be our responsibility to an extent, because, you know, yeah, they're going to grow up, they're going to become adults, they're going to make their own decisions, but you never stop being a parent, even when your children become adults. You will always love, you will always want to offer them guidance, you will always care for them. So just buckle up, okay? And also, enough of the parent shaming. If you regret becoming a parent, I am mad at you, sis. Bruh, it's a real feeling. And nobody, and yeah. I don't know, the kids, what about the kids? Your kids, if you're communicating with them openly and teaching them how to be responsible for their emotions and their feelings, they'll understand. They're not going to have a psychological breakdown because one day they found a video that mom and dad said that they regretted parenthood. It's going to be realistic, and you might even help them prepare for when they become parents by being open and honest and having fluid conversation with your children, and stop trying to be this perfect example to them in terms of this is, you know, be raw with them, you know, everything at an age appropriate age. But the more raw and open and honest you are with your children, the better you're going to help them to become open and raw, honest with you, with themselves, and with the people that they interact with as they get older.
Yeah. And I think, like, it's okay to have moments of regret, as long as they are, or not even, I don't even want to say regret, because regret, I think, is too strong. It's okay to have moments where you question, did you do the right thing to bring another life into the world? The problem is letting those feelings linger to the point where they dominate, to the point where they impact your ability to parent. Because I'd be lying if I ever said that I never had those questions. But at the end of the day, those are some of my proudest moments in life. Some of my greatest achievements in life, as far as I'm concerned, have been seeing my children hit milestones, you know, whatever that may be. Learning how to walk, learning how to read, learning how to make their first sandwich, learning how to tie their shoes, put their clothes on, whatever it may be. Getting out of high school, you know what I'm saying? Getting out of middle school, leaving elementary school, like even preschool, like all of those things. Those, when they hit them milestones, like, it's nothing like it. It ain't a drug out there that can duplicate that high. It's not an engagement of any sort. Like, there's nothing that you can indulge in that can replace that feeling. If you are a true parent, you got to really, once you're a parent and you are actively parenting, you will never stop being a parent. For you people who get presented with the opportunity and run in the opposite direction, is different for y'all. Like, you can detach yourself. You're more selfish in that regard. You know what I mean? But for y'all, for those of us who are actively parenting, who are making sacrifices for their kids, who are putting their children, maybe not always first, but putting your children to the forefront, y'all are to be commended. We understand y'all. We're on the same page, and we appreciate y'all. You know what I mean? For trying to produce something positive in society, for trying to bring something positive to the table. You know what I mean? And that's all I gotta say about that. I'm gonna leave it right there.
All right. Well, Jetty and Dash, we are forever and always grateful when you guys stop by, show the NJ podcast some love. Yes, like we appreciate.
And we want to. We got to do the favor for a favor, right? Like, y'all can't just come here. We got to come to the PVM.
Of course.
Yo, we actually got a topic this Sunday if you guys want to partake with us.
What's the topic?
Do you want to tell them?
Bro, I am sleep deprived right now. I cannot think right now. I will reach out to y'all in the IG. I will. Sure. I will.
It's a part 2 to what we did Sunday.
What?
I'm actually drawing a blank on what we talked about.
Look at y'all. Look, both of y'all take the time. Like, okay,
It's all good. We'll put it like this. It don't even matter what the topic is. We're gonna be there. We're gonna show up. We bring our
and of course, shout out to Till and Cal. There are other podcasts that we frequent often, and also shout out to Let's Talk Ish, Carmelita, all of our podcast babies. We love y'all. We support y'all, and we always appreciate the support y'all show us. Until next time, you guys. Bye.
Peace, 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 peace.
Peace.